Good morning, very good morning to you all. Let us enter to the lesson, too dear. Too dear means two meanings. One is intimate, another is costly. Which shall we consider here? Let us see. You might have been heard about Leo Tolstoy, a Russian short story writer, master of realistic fiction. His world's greatest novelist also. He lived in 19th century from 1828, the first decade of 20th century. He expired in 1910. Here, in this story, we enjoy it. We pity about the person. We horrify. We smile. We feel deep feeling of sorrow also. And then at last, appreciate the mastermind of the hero of this lesson. Let us start. Near the borders of France and Italy, on the shore of the Mediterranean Sea, lies a tiny little kingdom called Monaco. Where does Monaco lie? In the borders of France and Italy, on the shore of the Mediterranean Sea, a tiny little kingdom. Little means small, tiny means still smaller. So small little kingdom called Monaco. Many a small country town, just a town, not even a city, many a country town can boast more inhabitants than this kingdom. Although it is smaller than a town, it's called a kingdom. For there are only about 7,000 of them all told. All together, maybe older one, younger one, just born, youths, energetic, young and energetic, all together. Around 7,000 people. And if all the land in the kingdom were divided, there would not be an acre for each inhabitant. The land area is less than 7,000 acres. But this toy kingdom, there is a real kinglet. Kinglet means king of a small area. This toy kingdom, there is a real kinglet, and he had a palace and courtiers, ministers, and a bishop, generals, and an army also. It's not a large army because the inhabitant itself is 7,000 around. And why the army should be so large? The army consisted of only 60 men in all. But still it's an army. And more than, the source of income is very important for a country. The expenses should meet, that's why. There are also taxes in this kingdom as elsewhere. A tax on tobacco and on wine and spirits and a poll tax. Poll tax means land tax. But though the people there drink and smoke as people do in other countries, there are so few of them that the prince would have been hard put to it to feed his courtiers and officials and to keep himself. So, to retain his kingly level, he needs some money to meet his expenses, and he had to pay for his courtiers and all. He had to maintain his prestige, power, everything, and more feed his courtiers, officials, some small function, everything, for which this tax was not at all sufficient. Though the people there drink and smoke and as people do in other countries, there are so few of them. Totally, the king was so cool, calm, and good. So few of them that the prince would have been hard put to it to feed his courtiers and officials and to keep himself. To keep himself means to retain his kingly level. It was so hard for him. Whatever the tax he collect from this on tobacco, on wine, spirits, and a poll tax. Poll tax, little bit better because so many houses will be there. But the citizens are very less, very few in number, naturally the poll tax collection also will be less. And keep himself, if he had not found a new and special source of revenue. So other than these three, he had to find a new source of revenue, because to maintain all this, he need money. If it is not possible from all these taxes, he had to search some other way. The special revenue comes from a gaming house where people play roulette. Roulette is a gambling game. A gaming house was there in that small kingdom, Monaco, where people used to play roulette. Roulette is a gambling game. People play, and whether they win or lose, keeper always gets a percentage on the turnover, and out of his profit, he pays a large sum to the prince. So this is the main source of income for this king, the gaming house. One gaming house was there. Whether the people who play roulette there, whether they win or lose, they had to pay for the owner. His collection was good, from which he was giving a large amount to the prince. The reason he pays so much is that it's the only such gambling establishment left in Europe. A large sum is given to the king because he never wanted to close that gambling house. As it was left over, only one gambling house left in Europe, so many people, even from the neighboring countries, also used to come there to play roulette. Only such gambling establishment left in Europe. Some of the little German sovereigns used to keep gaming houses of the same kind. Other German sovereigns, they also used to keep such gaming houses where people used to play gambling roulette, but some years ago they were forbidden to do so. The government banned to continue that gaming house. Why? The reason they were stopped was because these gaming houses did so much harm. A man would come and try his luck, then he would risk as he had and lose it. Then he would even risk money that did not belong to him. Whatever he had, after losing that, he used to spend money, used to bid the money, taking from others also. He would drown or shoot himself and lose that too, and then in despair he would drown and shoot himself. How to repay? On the hope that he will win the roulette and make money, he used to bid the money which never belonged to him also. But when he loses it in despair, he will drown or shoot himself. So the Germans forbade their rulers to make money in this way. So as it was bringing danger to the life of the citizens, Germans banned that game from the country. But there was no one to stop the Prince of Monaco. In Monaco, the king had to ban, but he was not ready to ban. Why? Because it was the main source of income for him to maintain his kingly expenses. And he remained with the monopoly of the business. All the neighboring countries banned the game, but in Monaco, nobody was restricting the king to ban the gaming house or to stop the game. So it continued there so that he had the monopoly over the game. So now, whoever wants to play roulette had to go for Monaco. Now everyone who wants to gamble goes to Monaco. Whether they win or lose, the prince gains by it. Whether they win or lose, the owner of the gaming house used to get a percentage, from which he used to give a big part to the prince. So the prince is getting large amount of money, large source of income. It was a big source of income for him, this gaming house. You can't earn stone palaces by honest labor, as the proverb says. From today to tomorrow, it's not possible to make money if you go in a genuine way, says the proverb. You can't earn stone palaces by honest labor. You had to go in a wrong path to make money in a very short duration of time. So, and the kinglet of Monaco knows it's a dirty business. He knew that it's a dirty business. Gambling is not at all right. But what is he to do? It was very much needed. Money was very much needed in that country as the collection of these taxes was less and the expenses are more. He has to live, and to draw a revenue from drink and from tobacco is also not a nice thing. Even having wine, tobacco also not a right thing, no? So he consoled himself. If gambling is wrong, then chewing tobacco or drinking wine also not a right thing. Then why to consider that is wrong? Let it continue. He consoled himself because he wanted that money to meet his expenses. And rakes in the money and holds his court with all the ceremony of a real king. So as the source of money was solid enough, he used to enjoy his kingly position and moreover celebrations. He has his coronation, his levees. Levees means visitors for guests in a royal court. He has his coronation, his levees, his rewards, sentences and pardons, and he also has his reviews, councils, laws and courts of justice just like other kings, but only on a smaller scale. Why? Because the people in that kingdom itself were very less. So the court, judge, prince complaint or this council, law, everything is in a limited area and limited quantity. But anyhow, he enjoyed his kingly status. Now it happened a few years ago that a murder was committed in this toy prince's domain. Murder was not at all there. Even the gambling house was going on because it was a toy kingdom, and if the person kills himself in despair, then it would be out of his boundary. So it was not at all related to him. But once it happened a few years ago that a murder was committed in this toy prince's domains. The people of that kingdom are peaceable, and such a thing had not happened before. Just around 7,000 people, no? It was peace-loving country. The people over there were peaceable. Such murder never happened there before. The judges assembled with much ceremony because it was the first time they were settling such a case. The judges assembled with a much ceremony and tried to case in the most judicial manner. There were judges, the prosecutors, jurymen, and barristers. They argued and judged, and at last they condemned the criminal to have his head cut off as the law directs. As he killed a person, according to the law, his head should be cut off. That was the final judgment decided by the court. So far, so good. Everything was right. Okay, they declared their judgment. Until that moment, so far, so good. Next, they submitted the sentence to the prince. The prince read the sentence and confirmed it. He had to approve that. He had to sign that because he was the sole authority of the kingdom. So they submitted the sentence to the prince and he confirmed it. If the fellow must be executed, execute him. If he should be killed, execute him. He permitted. So, but there is only one hitch in this matter. Hitch. small problem in this matter, and that was that they had neither a guillotine nor cutting heads off, nor an executioner. Guillotine means a head cutting machine. When the machine is operated, a sword will come down and cut the head of the person who keep his head on its blades. So, nor an executioner. Executioner means the person who operates that guillotine. So, the person who operates that guillotine should be an expert. A professional killer, it should be. Professional means government approved killer. The ministers considered the matter because such things never happened there. So why to keep a guillotine machine over there? No need. And an execution also not needed because such murder never happened in this country, and such punishment also won't, never given. That's why. And decided to address an inquiry to the French government, asking whether the French could lend them a machine and an expert to cut off the criminal's head. So what to do? Their neighboring country, they wrote to the French government requesting to lend a guillotine machine and an executioner to cut off the head of this criminal. And if so, would the French kindly inform them what would be the cost? Lending means they will charge for that. And they asked to give the inform the cost of lending a machine and an executioner. The letter was sent. A week later, the reply came. A machine and an expert could be supplied. The cost would be 16,000 francs. This was laid before the king. He thought it over. 16,000 francs. The total population of the country itself is around 7,000. And if it is divided among them, each had to pay more than 2 francs. So, the wretch is not worth the money, he said. So much money is not needed to be spent on this wretch. Cancel it. Can't it be done somehow cheaper? Why should we spend so huge amount on this wretch? He asked. Why 16 francs is more than 2 francs a head on the whole population? The people won't stand it, and it may cause a riot. They will revolt against it. Why, just to kill a person, if we spend 2 francs on each person in the whole country, it won't be right. People will riot it. So, it's not fair. Think some other way where we can get this machine and the executioner in a cheaper rail. So, the council was called to consider what could be done. And it was decided to send a similar inquiry to the King of Italy. The French government is a republican, and has no proper respect for the king. But the King of Italy was a brother monarch and might be included to do the things cheaper. As the French government, the republican government, won't respect the position of a king, we can't ask them to reduce. So let us send an inquiry to the Italy king. They decided. So the letter was written and a prompt reply was received. The Italian government wrote that they would have pleasure in supplying both a guillotine machine and an expert, and the whole cost would be 12,000 francs. 4,000 francs less than what the French government told, including traveling expenses. So they need not pay for traveling expenses also. This was much cheaper, but still it seemed too much. Why? Because the Monaco kingdom was so small that this 12,000 francs was too heavy for them. The rascal was really not worth the money. so much money on him, spending so much money on him is not at all worth, they decided. It would still mean nearly 2 francs more per head on the taxes. Another council was called. They discussed and considered how it would be done in at less expense. Could not one of the soldiers perhaps be got to do it in a rough and homely fashion? So many soldiers are there. Why can't they cut the head of this person? Because they cut the head in war. The general was called and was asked, can't you find us a soldier who could cut a man's head off? So, in wars, they do not mind killing people. Let they kill for the government, for the sake of the country. The general was called and asked to find out a soldier who agreed to cut the head of this criminal. Not with the machine, in a homely manner, just lifting the sword and cutting the head of the person. So the general talked it over with the soldiers to see whether one of them would undertake the job. But none of the soldiers would do it. No, they said. We don't know how to do it. It's not a thing we have been taught. They killed the people in war, but they were not ready to kill this person. Why? Because in war, they have that war mode, and moreover, they are killing the enemies. Here, they have to kill their own countryman, maybe for accusing, maybe for his fault, but they are not trained for that. Just when a man surrenders himself, bows his head to cut his head off, lifting the sword and cutting. They told, no, never possible. We are not taught for that. What was to be done? Again, the ministers considered and reconsidered. They assembled a commission and a committee and a subcommittee, and at last they decided that the best thing would be to alter the death sentence to one of the imprisonment of life. Better to change the death sentence into life imprisonment, as it's not possible to get anybody to kill him inside the country, and the guillotine and the executioner's cost will be costly for the kingdom to bear. No other alternate arrangement could be searched. So, they decided the best thing is to change. Alter means change that sentence into imprisonment of life. Lifelong keeping the criminal inside the cell. This would enable the prince to show his mercy, and it would come cheaper. So the king also, he is so merciful for the person and never wanted to kill him. Such impression may circulate among the people, and moreover, and it would become much cheaper, they thought. The prince agreed to do this because he never wanted to spend so heavy amount of money on this criminal. And so the matter was arranged. The only hitch now was there no suitable prison for a man sentenced for life. All the people in that country were peace-loving people. So to keep a person permanently in jail, they never find any room for that. Hitch means again problem. There was no suitable prison for a man sentenced for life. So there was a lockup, policemen, everything lockup, where people sometimes kept temporarily. But there was no strong prison fit for permanent use. Just small lockups like police station lockup where the people who were accused could be kept for few days temporarily, but to keep him permanently lifetime. So no such rooms were there, no such arrangements were there in that country. However, they managed to find a place that would do. That would do means to keep him permanently in that place. And they put the young fellow there and placed a guard over them. A guard should be there, no? Or else he may run away. That's why they put the young fellow there and placed a guard over him. The guard had to watch the criminal. What's the duty of the guard? He had to watch the criminal whether he is there in the cell or running away. He had to safeguard him inside the cell itself, and had also to fetch his food from the palace kitchen. Such a royal food he was getting, the criminal. So the guard was appointed to provide food for this criminal from the palace kitchen and to guard him 24 hours. The guard should be paid. The prisoners remained there month after month till a year had passed. Nearly 1 year had passed. The criminal was kept inside the cell. But when a year had passed, the kinglet, looking over the account of his income and expenditure one day, noticed a new item of expenditure. He was not getting the usual balance. So one of the expenditure was new for him, which was not normal as earlier years. A new item of expenditure. This was for the keep of the criminal. To keep the criminal there, the new expenditure. They had to pay the guard. They had to provide food for the criminal and the guard. That's also royal food from the palace kitchen. For which it was too costly for them. Nor was it a small item either. There was a special guard and there was also a man's food. So they had to pay for the guard and also the expense of the food provided for the criminal. It came to more than 600 francs a year. They hesitated to spend 12,000 francs to bring the guillotine and the executioner, but here they spent more than around 600 francs per year.